Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, small law firm in central Minnesota. Back to just normal levels of late today, which is good because that just means I've gone back to being African-American rather than being, horrifically delayed. So, woo. Guys, we got a show tonight. We have a couple different topics. One of the big topics is something, this happened a couple days ago, yes. But the details have been unfolding and analysis has been coming out around the Trump civil fraud trial judgment. And so I figured we'd take a moment as that trial has now fully wrapped up with the judgment until like the next phase, which would be appeal and collection, all that stuff. Take a moment to just look at what happened with the judgment, how we got here, and what commentary is out there from the experts kind of on both sides that the media is talking about, what the plan is, and what the sort of concept behind an appeal on this issue might look like, beyond just the constitutional challenge to this judgment, because it's a big one. It's a large judgment. It's a girthy judgment. It's a Lizzo-sized judgment. No one wants to have to pay $355 million for a non-criminal conviction. That's the weird thing that happened here. This isn't a criminal conviction, but Trump has lost a civil case based on several criminal statutes, criminal acts, tried not before a jury, tried by a judge. Summary judgment granted, guilt before any evidentiary offers by Donald Trump's side. And the only trial issue was how much the judge was going to charge Donald Trump for this wonderful luxury of enduring the New York court system. And the prosecutor, the state attorney general who prosecutes this civil case, originally requested $250 million, but decided, I don't know why, definitely not because of a demonstrated horrific bias throughout the entire trial, but certainly other reasons based on facts, that she should actually ask for much more. And Trump ends up with a $355 million judgment. But don't worry, it's just an extra $100 million over what the initial request was. So we're going to talk about all of that, and we're going to talk about why that is possibly a big problem here, and see what the next phase of this case is. Other than that, I saw this story about an 18-year-old in Texas who just got a felony conviction for assisting the suicide of his 17-year-old girlfriend. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, I mean, murder's one thing. Manslaughter's another thing. Suicide is effectively illegal, but that doesn't make a bunch of sense to me. And you can't, I guess it's the death penalty if you're convicted of suicide. You know what I'm saying? How do you punish the person who does the suiciding? So then they go by extension to people who might be responsible for the suicide. And that's weird because you kind of pull that trigger yourself. And we saw a case not too long ago where a girl, a fucking evil girlfriend, basically Hannibal Lectered her boyfriend into gassing himself with the exhaust in a car in a garage. And he was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do it. I don't feel good. She's like, do it, pussy. Do it or you're a bitch. And she says this stuff over and over and over, just beats on, but by text messages, right? She's not even there. She's doing it by text messages, and he stays and he dies. And she ended up getting convicted on that. And that made me uncomfortable because it is basically speech. I mean, it's evil. She's garbage disposal of a human, but should it be illegal to tell someone to kill themselves? That's That's a really good question. This one is a level of abstraction away from that, because you've got someone who wants to kill himself, another party who they ask to help, or, offers them, I wanted to kill myself. Oh, really? I mean, I was kind of into that. You want some help? You need a hand with that one? Like, that's kind of a weird thing. I don't know how that transaction unfolds, but allegedly the person wants suicide. So then the person's like, well, I guess, like, if you want off the train, I can shove you out the door. And then that's a felony. And I'm like, I mean, I don't want anybody to kill themselves. But, like, if they want to go, I'm not sure the government's in the place to stop them. I get it, though, because for a lot of people, that suicide decision is a temporary one, made in a dark time, in a particular mood, a lot of times with complicating factors, right? So the idea would be, if you could just get them through that decision, maybe a couple hours a day, 3 days, a 72-hour hold, you could get this person to a place where that thought goes away, and they can start getting treatment or whatever to not have those thoughts in the future. I get the concept, and I get the government's interest in preserving a taxpayer, potential taxpayer, but, like, should they? I don't know. It seems like, what's the liberty option? I want to get rid of my right to life. Fuck you. Government's like, no. So it's a strange one. I'm not actually sure where I stand on it. I know, like, I have a general pro-life provision. I've always been against the concept of assisting suicide. But as I get older, like, what if I want off this damn rock? As I get older, and as I, become more libertarian, I guess, I look at that and I go, why though? Like, why is this a thing? I know there's a whole bunch of potential for abuse. There's potential for it to be an excuse for an actual murder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I get the pitfalls, but just because there are pitfalls to a concept does not mean we should regulate it. So with that, that's kind of the last main topic. There's some other stuff that's, like, floating around there to talk about, but I don't know. We can talk about whatever. Still hasn't gotten a haircut. No, I'm not going. Anyway. But anyway, so that being said, I guess we'll get started on the show. Don't know exactly how long we're going to go. I have several articles on this specific Trump New York fraud trial case. And I do think, kind of thinking about how this thing unfolds, this is a serious issue. And finding out that there's no jury requirement for this type of trial that's based on criminal acts, but with a lower standard, I think we really do need to look at the constitutional issues behind this. And finding out where that no jury requirement comes from is even worse, and it's a big part of the constitutional problem. And that's brought up by one of the articles with a civil trial lawyer commenting on it and sort of the approach to the appeal. So I think that's interesting. The fraud trial itself wasn't that interesting to me. The issues surrounding it, the practicability of enforcing this civil infraction. And remember, it's a civil infraction that winds up with $355 million in judgment. Trump can't do business in New York for 3 years. He can't run his own company, and he can't acquire any credit in New York State for 3 years as well. Like, that is not a civil remedy. That's a criminal penalty. That is not a thing where you just go, oh yeah. I mean, this comes out of all civil cases. Like, no, it does not. These are criminal imposition here. So the fact that he's not allowed a jury trial should be a violation of his due process rights under the Fifth Amendment. But yet here we are, and we'll talk about why. This is the first time I'm aware of that this statute has been used in this way to receive this kind of penalty. And that's a critical element here. And we'll talk about what that means and why that is as we get into that topic, which we're going to do in just a second. First, we've got Jake. Jake Hudson is now a monthly supporter on Rumble. Hey, thanks, man. Welcome to being a monthly supporter. Scruffy looking nerve herder says, hey, Nick, Did you hear that Anthony Novak's lawyer got disbarred? Gary Vick. Who's Anthony Novak? Anthony Novak. Clearly I have not heard. The fuck is this? Let's see. Without U.S. Supreme Court today refused to hear an appeal from Anthony Novak, who was jailed for 4 days. River Falls Eye Surgery Clinic. Eye doctor River Falls. That's not him. What is he arrested? Oh, shit. Okay. Now I know who this is. I didn't know it by the name. He was a guy who trolled a police department. He created a parody police department account on Facebook or Twitter or something, and he would make posts as if he was one of the as if he was the police. But they're so ridiculous, right? They were ludicrous assertions about what was going on. It was satire, it was parody, it was funny, it was comedy, but also commentary and criticism. And criminal penalty. I mean, he got jailed. So apparently his attorney got disbarred. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Wow. Damn. All right. Let's get into the, he got disbarred for ghosting clients. Cool. Like, not like the funny kind of ghosting where he kills them, but the part where he just ignores them. All right. I'm going to try a little bit of a different whiskey tonight. I'm going to try this Calumet Farm 8-year-old vintage release. I've had different Calumet Farms. It's really good. I haven't had this one. So with that, we'll once we get this little whiskey glass going, we'll get into these Trump topics. We'll get into Trump's topics. And we'll talk about Letitia James being a huge bitch and a cunt. And Judge Engoron effectively, I mean, just creating one of the most unreasonable environments that you would have to defend yourself in the entire, I mean, we're going to talk about it. I have a lot to say about it. Just still pisses me off. And I literally don't care about Trump getting some civil penalty or having some criminal trial. Like if he did something wrong, like there is a system to deal with that. I think a lot of it's politically motivated, but you should have a fair shot. You should always have a fair shot. That's the entire purpose of our justice system. And he didn't. Bear Lamb says, no, that whiskey's not that great. And he's correct. It's not that great. So we're not gonna drink much of that tonight. Yuck. Ugh. Yuck. That was not fun. All right, let me pull up this article and pull up, where are we? Okay. So first, what should we do? Let's go with this article first. This is Letitia James. So this is going to be more on the side of the state of New York. Oh, I want to point one other thing out. In these trials, particularly against Donald Trump, where you have a state actor prosecuting or petitioning against Donald Trump. You've got Letitia James in New York. Down in Fulton County, Georgia, you have Fani Willis. What you find is that we have this structure, this system of justice, right? Presumably. It's enshrined in the Constitution. It guarantees these rights the government cannot infringe upon. You have these rights, and it recognizes that the government cannot infringe upon them. And it tells us about it. The right to due process, the right to habeas corpus, the right to a trial by jury, all of these things exist. And that's where they are. The problem is always the theoretical application of law versus the practical application of law. People talk about perjury all the time in like cases we're watching. Oh, they're lying. They're perjuring themselves. they're going to get in trouble. They never get charged for perjury if they're on the side of the state. And it's the same thing here. Judge Engoron has created an environment that is unconstitutional for Donald Trump if you take an objective look for it. Could it be done constitutionally? Maybe, but not in this instance. It wasn't. So he's created this unconstitutional environment for Trump. But to challenge that, you have to engage the government that is benefiting from the unconstitutionality. The party that is restrained by the Constitution must acknowledge that it exceeded its restraint and then rein itself back in. And they just never fucking do it. When there's a political motivation, it gets worse. When it's public and there's personal and professional motivations for people involved, like Judge Engoron's court clerk being appointed or elected to a judge position just like him. Shocker. Right after a media circus around a trial where she sat next to the judge on the bench. Like his chair is here, her chair is here. She's in jerk off range for Engoron. What are you doing? I'm listening to disco. That's this idea that she's benefited directly from being in the public light against Donald Trump. Fani Willis, massively motivated to prosecute Donald Trump. She will have the opportunity, if she's successful in convicting him of anything, to run for governor, senator, House member. Sky's the limit on the Democrat side for someone who prosecutes Trump successfully. Or you've got Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor appointed by Fani Willis or hired by Fani Willis to run the case, who has already billed over $500,000 in the case. And that's in addition to his private practice. He's got a private practice that he runs. So he's making quite a bit of money. It's a side gig for him. It's a good side gig. And he is going to build the profile of his entire law firm and everything else. I mean, sure, his law firm might shut out some Republicans, some conservatives, etc. But man, Nathan Wade, the guy, the special prosecutor who put Trump behind bars in Georgia, in Fulton County, the Atlanta prison system. That guy's law firm is going to take the fuck off if he wins. Lots of potential for these people to do that. When you start factoring all these things in and then go to overcome all of this impropriety that exists, you have to realize that the government has to recognize its own error and then correct it. And it has no motivation to do so because there is literally zero enforcement arm above the government itself. The way it usually works is a higher court, a court of appeals, or eventually the Supreme Court of a state or the Supreme Court of the United States could return your justice to you when the government takes it away. How often, though, do these courts ever punish the government that infringed your rights? You see these guys, you see these articles all the time. Someone jailed for 35 years wrongfully for murder, DNA evidence exonerates them. 35 years they sit in prison. Their entire life gone, ruined completely. No career advancement, no social advancement, no social networking, not even keeping up with technological advancements. Imagine you've been jailed for 35 years and social media comes out. What the fuck what does the world look like? Let's say you go to prison in 1993. You got 35 years. You come out in what, 2028? What the fuck does that look like to you? What would you even think? And then you find out it was all wrong. Like they just got it wrong. Sorry. Oh, don't worry about it, pal. I'm stretched out now, so it's easier. Doesn't hurt as much. What the fuck? They don't get punished for this stuff. It's not like the people who did it, who fucked up the evidence collection, the prosecutor who crafted a story that wasn't true, sold it to a jury based on whatever prejudices they could find. And I don't mean like racism or sex. I mean literally any prejudices. Prejudice the jury by just simply making someone look like a bad guy. They may not be a bad guy. Whatever you do, whatever the leverage they could find over this jury's decision, they apply it, and it's not true. And the worst part is they often know it's not true. They think it might be true. They just can't prove it, but they can convince them, right? That's how they do it. I'm pretty sure this happened. But they can't. They can't get there. Who punishes them? No one, ever. Government doesn't get punished for putting you in prison for 35 years. It's just an oops and a wave, and you probably don't even get compensated for it. Like, it's fucking crazy what happens to people because the government cannot punish itself. So what we've got here is this case where all of this is stacked up against Trump. It's unconstitutional. And what you find, though, is the government defending its own actions, even when they're wrong. I saw an article today. I'm not going to pull it up, but the governor of, it was either the mayor of Atlanta or the governor of Georgia. I don't know. Some guy. He was defending Fani Willis. It's like, Fani Willis is not on trial here. It's like, actually, homeboy, she is now. She is. Her relationship with Nathan Wade is on trial right now. That's the hearing that you're at is a trial on that relationship. Whether or not they acted with impropriety in a way that prejudiced the defendant in a criminal case. And if they did, they'll be removed from the case. That'll be the discipline, by the way. They'll be removed from the case. And maybe the case will be dropped. Are they going to go to jail? Are they going to get disbarred? No, probably not. Probably not. Even if it does directly impact Trump and they have to remove them, probably not going to have any major ramifications. Maybe the ethics board will do something, maybe 6 months probation where they have to sit under an ethical attorney, or they just won't. That was weird. Anyway. All right. So that's the fucking problem I have with all this. This New York fraud trial is a fraud. It's a sham on the actual statute itself. It's highly prejudicial to anyone who's defending themselves in there. They're criminal charges, but not criminal outcomes. Yet you're going to feel like you've been fucking criminally punished south of prison. So here we go. Let's talk about it. Let's pull up this article as we go. Kimberly Ashcraft says, Nick, glad to see you. Hope you and yours are well. We are well. Thank you so much. Janiel Vargas says, how's your friend with the stomach cancer doing? Actually, I don't know, but there's some good news. Originally, they did not think there was going to be a treatment plan for him. Now, he is actually undergoing chemotherapy. So they got this nice little ray of hope. Before it was like, chemo's not going to fix this. Nothing's going to fix this. Just have to hope for some like miracle or some remission on its own. And now he gets to have chemo. I don't know if like he needed to get some level of health. I don't know what the holdup was, but it does look like he's getting treatment for that. So hopefully there is a better outcome on the horizon. So thank you for asking. EHF says, even if they didn't have a sexual relationship, could they still be dropped for conflict of interest? Yes. Yes. These are, you don't even have to have an improper relationship or improper anything. What you have to avoid is the appearance of impropriety, the reasonable appearance of impropriety. With this case, what you've got is Fani Willis hiring Nathan Wade and their relation starting allegedly right after the hiring of Nathan Wade or right before the hiring of Nathan Wade. Who knows when it actually starts? And then her approving a high rate billable hour sort of plan for him, stamping off or rubber stamping the checks as they come in to the tune of, I think, over $600,000 he's actually billed and been paid. They don't have the records for some of this stuff, but been paid allegedly over $600,000. She's the one approving the checks. The appearance of impropriety comes in when Nathan Wade has a bank statement effectively showing that he bought plane tickets for himself and Fani Willis to go on vacation together. He paid for those, which means that the taxpayers paying him paid Fani Willis for his actions that she is supposed to be somewhat removed from. He's definitely not supposed to be influenced by her. Is it a conflict of interest? Sure. What if they don't think they can win? And that's what you have to ask. What if they don't think they can win? What if they don't think that they'll win the immunity argument? What if they don't think that they'll win some portion of this, but they know they can persist on? Nathan Wade can keep getting paid large sums of money, and he can keep taking Fanny on that Fanny clapping vacation. Is that improper? Yeah, of course. It's a malicious prosecution. It's vexatious litigant, but the government's doing it. So what else? What other appearance of impropriety is? Remember, a special prosecutor is supposed to be removed from the district attorney's office. They're supposed to be able to operate independently. They're supposed to be able to operate free of politic. But if they're in a sexual relationship that's ongoing, especially if it started after the hiring is weird, or before, they both have their own pitfalls, but after the hiring is weird, because if it started after, you have to wonder if it will last through the end of the trial. Because once it's over, when it's over, right? Like once that happens, does the sexual tension and attraction and desire, does that fade away? Was it related to the instance and the incident and the incidental closeness, or is it related to a genuine attraction to the other person? And please remember that when I say, is it related to genuine attraction to another person, we are talking about Fannie Willis, which is like if rye bread had an extra chromosome and you sliced it down the middle. I mean, this thing is not attractive at all. It looks like a melting pot of ice cream. And yes, I mean a pot of ice cream. And where have you even seen that? The pot would be melting. The ice cream is a gross looking person. And I can't imagine taking her on a vacation. You walk into like the Ritz-Carlton, like, oh, I'm Nathan Wade, high power attorney, got the nice suit. You know, he's like I think he's a passably attractive dude. I don't know. Let me see. Am I calling a man hot? Maybe. Give me a minute. Nathan Wade. Fuck, I don't need. Are you trying to use my location? Okay, he's not that hot. Okay, look, he was black, so I assumed he was attractive. I was way wrong on that. Sorry. Here we go. This is. God damn it. This is that energy when you realize you've been paying luxury vacations for Fanny. No. My nostrils aren't wide enough, but everything else we can do. I'm not bald enough either, but we'll get there. Dude, yeah, it just, oh God. See, I can't imagine that he's actually like, hey girl, I think it's just all incidental. I think it's proximity. I think it's convenience. I think it's the tension, the energy of all of that, where they get like in Speed 2, right? Where Sandra Bullock says to the guy that's not Keanu Reeves, and everybody's like, what happened? She says to him, because he's like hitting on her, and she's like, listen, relationships built in around high stress situations don't work out. Trust me. They're like, oh, that's how they get rid of Keanu Reeves, because he probably didn't want to record Speed 2 because he's on a boat. And that was stupid. All right, here we go. Optional translation says, who punched you? Did you black out and hit your face? No. Who punched me was me, because the only person who kicked my ass is me. I'm invincible. Cyrus Jalali says, will client privileges be dropped for Big Fanny? Which attorney-client privileges are we talking about here? Maybe. I don't know. All right, let's enlarge this. Oh, here we go. Audio Wizard says, Nick, I want to bring to your attention, there's a judge in Florida trying to make a YouTuber responsible for their fans' actions without them directing anyone to do anything. So many people want to do that. And the best part of that is you try to explain to them, like, look, you don't know that they're fans. Well, they say they watch the show and they're fans. So? Like, if I watch an Ethan Klein video, I'm not a fan. What? Let's say I go become Jewish. Is that Ethan Klein's fault? He didn't tell me to do that. I'm like, orthodoxy seems great. That's what I'm going for. No. Stefan Kemper says, wonder what that hard conversation that Fannie and Wade had, probably when Fannie asked Wade to pick her up. The hard conversation was Wade getting pegged. Fannie looks like a dummy mommy. Oh, shit. Got a couple. Red Chief. Red Chief? God, I love Rumble. Hi, Nick. Just wanted to say hi. Got married 2 months ago at age 52 and suddenly had to take emergency foster custody of a 2-year-old 3 weeks ago. 2-year-olds were a lot easier when I was 30. Oh, brother. Wait till they're 3. Good luck, my friend. Rhonda G says they already said it ended sometime between June and August last year. What, the relationship? That's a little self-serving, isn't it? Real quick before I get into this thing, in their hearing, so part of the problem, like part of the allegation is that Nathan Wade is getting paid. Paychecks are approved by Fannie. Nathan Wade is then buying luxury vacations for her to take her with him. And we can prove that because he literally bought plane tickets. And when you buy plane tickets, names are attached to them, right? Okay, so that happened. That's a thing that did occur. Fannie said, no. Actually, we split the cost of vacation. So he didn't actually pay for the whole vacation. Like he may have bought the plane tickets and the hotel and all that stuff. But I paid cash for all the other stuff. Do you have any receipts? No. None. You have no receipts? Nope. Can you prove any of that? Well, not really. You just paid cash for half of the vacation, like your half? Yeah, well, I like paid him back for the plane ticket in cash. There's no transaction. There's no record, no anything. Just say it. And someone might just go ahead and accept that because she's the government. Randall McCollum says the best part of Wade's testimony is when he kept using the word matriculate. Matriculate is like a normal word in certain circles, but matriculate can be a gross word if you really think about it. Right? Girl, I'm going to matriculate all the way to them ovaries. Wade said that. That wasn't me. That wasn't me. I don't talk like that. Matriculate? Okay, here we go. So the New York, Letitia James says she is prepared to seize Trump's buildings. Buildings have life insurance. If he can't pay his $354 million civil fraud fine. New York Attorney General made the remarks in an interview with ABC News. And of course she did. Just immediately, she's on a media tour now. Look what I did. 4 days after a judge ordered former President Donald Trump to pay $354 million in his civil fraud case, where, mind you, the petitioner, the plaintiff in the civil fraud case is the government. The injured party in the civil fraud case isn't the government. You know who the injured party was? Nobody. Nobody said Trump did anything wrong to them. Nobody felt wronged. Nobody felt like Trump stole anything or defrauded them. None of the banks found themselves as victims until the state asked them to, on the witness stand, find themselves as victims, till the state convinced them that the state convinced a bank that a bank would have charged a billionaire a higher rate of interest on credit that it was extending to a billionaire whose business they desired. Nope. I guarantee you that bank charged the exact rate they wanted to, because banks are really, really good at charging interest rates. Banks have been kicked out of 121 countries. Like, they're so good at finding the right interest rate, assessing the collateral that's put up, and then taking a risk that is calculated and anticipated and very, very intentional, especially when we're talking about the highest net worth clients that they have and are pursuing. They're relying on the Donald Trump name, Donald Trump's personal credit, his credibility as a businessman to pay this loan back. And Donald Trump not only paid all of the loans back, he paid them all at least on time, if not early. The banks had no complaints. The state comes in and says, you would have made more money if you would have done this thing that you definitely would have done. And the bank's like, oh yeah, I guess. And some of the banks are like, no, actually, that's ridiculous. We charged him exactly what he wanted. We don't care if he lied or not. We do our own due diligence. It's a negotiation. He says a building's worth $100 million. We say it's worth $86 million. And we come to some agreement on what it's probably worth. And we lend based on that. Or we just say, no, it's $86 million. That's all you get. Fuck you. He wants our money. It's our money to lend. And they just took away all agency of banks to do this. But this is a civil fraud case, but none of the alleged victims are plaintiffs in the case. They only have officers as witnesses. That's the closest they get to a victim status, is having one of their officers be a witness. They're not collecting the money. The victims of this case don't collect the money. The victim in this case is the state of New York and the integrity of the business transactions. Oh, yes. If you know what, when I think of business purity and integrity, I think of New York banking, the pinnacle of ethical behavior, of integrity in banking practices. Yeah, New York, that's where I go. That's what I think. Certainly. That's like banking in Haiti. Fuck that. So anyway, this fine is going to the state. Fantastic. So New York Attorney General Letitia James told ABC News that she is prepared to seize the former president's assets. She wants to seize that ass if he is unable to find the cash to cover the fine. Quote, if he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court. We will ask the judge to seize his assets, James said in an interview with ABC News' Aaron Katursky. Now, remember, this entire case is built on the idea that Trump has overvalued his assets, and the state presented lower values. But like, if you look at Mar-a-Lago, the value that they presented for Mar-a-Lago is laughably low. It's an impossibly low figure. So Trump's was too high. Are they going to give him a 70% haircut on his assets? Are they going to do that? Well, we value this at this number. Sorry, that's not how banking or real estate works at all. But it won't matter because it's not banking, it's not real estate. It's the state assigning a value. Trump can fight it if he wants. He's done so well in New York so far. They'll assign a value. It'll be a low ball. They'll seize the asset and knock that value off of his total. So $354 million fine isn't going to have an actual $354 million asset attached to it. It's going to have an asset or a set of assets worth 2 times as much, 2.5, 3 times. What is it? Is it $1 billion in assets? Maybe. Trump was fined $354.8 million plus approximately $100 million in prejudgment interest on Friday. So it's actually fucking $450 million prejudgment interest after Judge Arthur Engoron determined that he inflated his net worth in order to get more favorable loan terms. And frankly, Judge Arthur Engoron determined that. That is the most correct sentence. There's no jury. There's no actual examination of facts. The former president has denied all wrongdoing and said he will appeal, which we're going to talk about that appeal in a minute. Saying that she was very confident with the strength of her case on appeal, James reiterated that her office would not hesitate to seize Trump's assets, mentioning Trump's 40 Wall Street skyscraper by name. So there you go. If the former president is unable to find the cash to cover the court-ordered disgorgement. So yeah, 40 Wall Street, Trump Tower in New York, that's the one. That's what they're going to go after. This is not about recovering the assets. This is about punishment. Punish, punish, punish. We are prepared to make sure that the judgment is paid to New Yorkers, which means the state, not to New Yorkers. It means the state. The state will squander that money. And yes, I look at 40 Wall Street each and every day. Each and every day looks at 40 Wall Street. James said of the standard court process for collecting judgments in civil cases. James directly countered Trump's allegation that the case lacked any victims, instead describing her case as vital to ensuring financial markets treat New Yorkers fairly. How did the financial markets treat New Yorkers unfairly here. How did they do that? In which way are they? How does Donald Trump create an unfair market for New Yorkers, even if he does misrepresent the value of his property? How does that happen? What thing did he do to do that? It's ensuring financial markets treat New Yorkers fairly. So wait, is it Trump's fault or is it the bank's fault? Because she's talking about the banks. It's the banks. She's not talking about Trump there. He's not the financial market. That's the banks. Marcus Squintus says, what actually ended last June, July was Wade's physical therapy due to injuries suffered while trying to carry Big Fanny to the bedroom. Ryan the Other says, I'm loving the Eisenhower trilogy so far. Finished Xenos and almost done with Malleus. Nice. Fucking great. Kimmy K says, Fanny and Nathan expect all to believe they didn't bump Uglies till after he was hired. How are they able to go on so many trips in such little time and while he's being treated for prostate cancer? Told you she was pegging him. Sleepless in Minnesota says Trump needs to have his property taxes recalculated on each of the disputed properties, then sue the city and state for refund plus enforcement or plus interest. Well, I think part of the problem is at least on the Mar-a-Lago property, they use the state assessment, which is ridiculous. You cannot use a tax assessment in West Palm Beach as evidence of the actual fair market value of the property. All right, here we go. Rumble username says they gave New Yorker Trump a sweetheart deal. Can't see how that's unfair. No, first of all, it's not unfair. And they didn't give him a sweetheart deal. That was some of the really interesting testimonies that, they were like, even if he lied, he was well above our requirements for having these special lending privileges. And they're not going to. Banks are not required to have somebody who works at McDonald's with a 650 credit score have the same interest rate as Donald Trump or any other billionaire who's borrowing significantly more money, has significantly better credit. Their credit is literally their name. They don't even have a credit score. They just can pay. And they can pay. They're fucking billionaires until they can't, but they can until they can. So here we go. Guys, it's not. Letitia James is not a well-shaped person either. Looks like someone took a picture of her in portrait mode and stretched it to fit widescreen. Look at the, god damn. Her arm's weird looking too. Ugh. That arm can grab a cat out of a tree. Financial frauds are not victimless crimes. He engaged in this massive amount of fraud. It wasn't just a simple mistake, a slight oversight. The variations are wildly exaggerated, and the extent of the fraud was staggering. James said, if average New Yorkers went into a bank and submitted false documents, the government would throw the book at them. Hey, guys, do you remember 2008? That is when average New Yorkers went into banks by the literal millions and submitted false documents. They did stated income loans with false statements of income. All of unreal amounts of fraud happened. How many of them got prosecuted? Well, throw the book at them. No, you wouldn't. You never would. Because if an average New Yorker went into a bank and submitted a false document, the bank would do their due diligence like they did with Trump. Say, yeah, that's not worth that. You don't own that. That's not your actual income. We need some proof of these things. We need this. You can't just go into a bank and submit false documents and then get prosecuted. The bank will just say, no, fuck you. We can look at this and see what's happening. We're not stupid. We've done this forever. Dark Fox 2000 says, I still miss you. When we getting that Chinese food? It's Japanese, you bigot. Just because they both squint doesn't make them the same. All right, here we go. Back to this. Same should be true for former presidents. Yeah, okay. But New York didn't throw the book at the former president. They didn't criminally prosecute him. You know why? They would lose. James also rebuffed Trump's allegation that the case will prompt a mass exodus of business activity from New York. Last I checked, tourism is up. Wall Street is doing just fine. That's not what he said. With Trump losing 2 civil cases against columnist E. Jean Carroll, facing Georgia election interference charges from Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, and now losing his case against James, New York Attorney General concluded the interview with an observation about Trump's legal cases. Someone once told me, if you want something done, give it to a woman, James said. Maybe that's true if the fact finder is a simp. Or not, who knows? What kind of response is that? That's a weird one, right? Like overtly sexist, girl power-ish or whatever. But Letitia Engeron's the guy who imposed the sentence in the judgment. I don't know how you, whatever. Anyway, all right. So there's the fine, $354.8 million, plus another roughly $100 million in interest, pre-judgment interest. And they're set to collect it by making Trump sell assets. If he cannot free up the liquid assets available, they'll just take stuff and then they'll assign a value to it. It'll lowball it and he'll be fucked. So he'll have to come up with something liquidating property in his own way. And the interesting thing about that is, what is the market value of that property? What is it now? Let's think about this, because I've talked about a lot about the market value of property in this Trump case, specifically the property like Mar-a-Lago, where Mar-a-Lago is attached to Trump by name. This is luxury property. It's very unique. It has miasma around it. That's actually just homeless people, but it's got this great like aura, and it's valuable because it's attached to Trump in some way. Now, though, these buildings in New York that are potentially seizable by the government, that just drove down the price. So even the mere act of threatening to seize these properties gives a buyer, a potential buyer, leverage against Trump, because Trump can say, oh, there's a wonderful building, $250 million. You know, I put a lot into it, a lot of Chinese labor, gypsum, you know, a little gypsum, not gypsies, very dangerous. Don't do that. Romanians, not to be trusted, but gypsum, the boards, we put that in there. We got a cheap, very good deal from China. $250 million, okay? That's what he says. Well, New York's like, yeah, but he overvalues those properties by quite a bit. We say it's about $65 million. So then a potential buyer goes, I now have a leverage price, a floor price of $65 million that the government will seize and assign to it and take it away from him. Now you buy a $250 million property for $115 million. What's Trump going to do? He can't negotiate up, because if they don't buy it, the government will seize it, assess a low value, and then maybe auction it off, and they could probably get a good deal. They're still going to beat that $250. So what do? They've artificially negatively impacted the value of any business or any property in New York, except maybe Trump Tower. Maybe Trump Tower. But every other one is what they've impacted his ability to sell it. So here's the problem with this, is that this is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. It has a lower bar for finding of guilt, of conviction, and the penalties here they're unreal. Let's get into why that matters for appeal by someone who's smarter than me. Actually, I don't know if he is, but we're going to say he is. Even though he's got a stupid name. That's not true. So this guy says, Trump has a ripe argument for fighting outrageous New York City civil fraud penalty, says legal expert Sol Weisenberg. I trust him immediately. Points out the real problems with the judgment against Trump in New York City, right? Oh, see, this is a better whiskey. I was trying that other one, the Calumet Farms. It's not good, so I'll have to drink it like sparingly and slow. But the Wiseman Kentucky straight rye whiskey is very good. This is by my one of my favorite distilleries that produce the Kentucky Owl. So, all right, here we go. So this must be, look at this gnarled face. This is a man who's seen some shit. Just a moment. I have to join Fox News, which I will not do. I hate the difference between using a phone to look at an article and then, using a computer and having a subscription paywall for the computer, but not for the phone. Stupid. So we'll just use this anyway. All right. Former Whitewater racist deputy independent counsel Saul Weisenberg joined America Reports Tuesday to discuss the judgment against former President Trump in the New York civil fraud case. Weisenberg laid out why he believes Trump's legal team could successfully appeal the ruling, citing, quote, real constitutional problems with a $355 million property or penalty. Yes, the real constitutional problems exist. This guy, though, is, he's going to point them out. That's why I like this article here. He's going to say it. Well, I'll put it to you this way. I understand I'm not an expert on New York civil fraud law. That doesn't matter here. But it seems to me there's some real constitutional problems with the $355 million judgment when there is no victim, no financial loss of any kind. I think that is, you have a ripe argument. Now, the state made the case that there is a victim, that the victim is the banks. The banks were too stupid to know they were victims, which is why they didn't sue Trump on their own. And therefore, New York had to come rescue the banks from their own business. And that the financial loss was actually the lack of gain, right? That they could have gotten more interest, which is actually a really, really challenging thing to say, because if they had proposed a higher interest rate, Trump may not have borrowed the money. That plain and simple. It was very much a negotiation. Trump wants the credit, but he can go elsewhere for credit. Maybe he has a better relationship at a different bank. Who knows? They say that New York determined that the bank would have charged higher interest and Trump would have accepted it rather than negotiate down, rather than leverage something else, rather than do anything else to get that money, get that paper. So they say there is financial loss, but it's not. It was a potential earning. There's a reduced potential earnings. And they say there's a victim, but the victims didn't consider themselves victims until the state made them victims. So he says, I think that is, you have a ripe argument. You have an argument for a substantive due process violation. But the question is, has this been preserved at trial? And that is a good question. Preserving issues on appeal or for appeal is something that has to be done on the record. I think that's bullshit on especially some of these constitutional issues. But they could have I think they objected to the constitutionality of this statute probably several times. I don't know if that's properly preserved. Maybe they unpreserved it. They waived it by not petitioning at some other or not preserving it at some critical point. Not sure, but you get the idea. They probably have challenged the constitutionality of this process in advance. Tara Rayner says, toast to me. My youngest daughter is pregnant. Well, Tara, I will toast you. Although I am slightly opposed to you bringing one more Canadian into the world, I guess we'll have to just let that one slide this time. And hopefully, I'm not going to say that. Tara Rayner, cheers to you. A toast to you, soon to be, well, in a while, grandma, youngest daughter, bringing new life into the world, even if it is Canadian. Please have a smile on your face and a warm spot in your heart for that new child. And may you pass on the great values that you have and the wonderful character that you are into that little monster. Cheers. All right. Real Patriot Party says, your gay shirt selection has effectively Elmo'd my 60-inch HDR gaming monitor. So in Elmo's voice, while being strangled to death, tell me how it'll be okay, you mod promising failed shyster. How the fuck am I supposed to? I don't know if I can do this today. Give me a second. Hey, Real Patriot Party. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Because I'm going to come there and tickle you. That's right, Tickle Your Elmo. Elmo is next. That was horrible. I got really strained at the end. Sorry. I hope you get touched by Elmo. And an angel. Tara Rayner says, my second grandbaby. First one is 3. Baby Aria. Hey, congrats. That's awesome. Being a grandparent's got to be cool. Because you're just like, oh, you're a great little kid. Here's a bunch of sugar. Here's a bunch of fun stuff. Now fuck off back to your parents. All right. Back to this. So he says, substantive due process violation hasn't been preserved. That I'm not sure of, but it just seems to me to be an outrageous amount given the judge's findings that there's no victim, no monetary victim here. Look at, oh, God. It's like the crypt keeper shit out an abortion. That's what he looks like. Jesus. I think the bigger message is it's going to send a message to certain businesses and business owners. If you're a radical conservative, why do you got to be radical? Or if, forget about what your politics are, if you end up offending or insulting whatever the current woke orthodoxy is, what will happen to you? Keep in mind, there was no jury here, and the judge crows about this in his opinion. Judge Engeron, he says, I don't need a jury under New York law. But this is important right here. That's based on a 2011 opinion that said you don't need a jury because this is an equitable remedy. Now, this is a very, very interesting distinction. Our courts are courts of law and courts of equity. Legal issues are legal. Equity issues are equitable. Legal issues are based on a statutory scheme. It says this is infracted in some way, or a common law understanding of an infraction of a basic principle like personal injury, stuff like that. We have a set of remedies for these things to make people whole at the expense of the person who made them less than whole. Equitable remedies are different than that. Equitable remedies are supposed to be a thing that brings the parties to equity, not necessarily making the other party whole. Equitable remedies, the idea is that they recognize that there isn't like a victim in an equitable remedy. It means that there's an imbalance in a relationship. So a bank's imbalanced relationship with Trump would be that, well, we didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, so to speak. We're going to just use this to balance out the relationship to what it should have been because something got fucked up. So here we go. We want to remedy at equity, not at law. An equitable remedy in this case is not $450 million, especially when the banks did not consider themselves victims. This is a huge problem here because what you're getting is this massive penalty that looks like a criminal penalty and is accompanied by multiple sort of criminal impositions. The inability to lead his own organizations for years, the inability to acquire credit is a reduction of liberty. That's criminal. That's not civil remedies. I can't sue you and have you not be able to get a loan in the state. Like that's not a thing that we can work out as just a normal civil case. So he is saying here about the equitable remedy. That means we're not, and that monetary damages are incidental. But that isn't what happened here. Monetary damages were $355 million, so that stands that law on its head. And I think that they do have, again, a potential constitutional argument here, a very strong one if they appropriately raised it at trial. It's always the trick with appeal is what did you have to do to preserve it? We don't really know here. I'm not a New York civil fraud expert either. But what I am an expert on is right now, we're going to flip over to Rumble exclusively. We're going to say goodbye to YouTube. We're going to pop over there. If you want to join us over on Rumble, all you have to do is click my button. The link is highlighted in the description on YouTube. It is also highlighted in the pinned chat by Jay Liebgott up at top. Come join the Rumble show. We've got plenty of show left. We're still in this we're in the second part of the first topic, which is good. We're going to hit this harder than Nathan Wade hit Fannie Willis. And we are going to get down, to this kind of core issue around these, the constitutional question here, why this matters, what Trump's appeal sort of angles are. This is not the only one, but this is a really important and interesting one because law is not being applied in the way it was created. And when it's applied the wrong way, in an unconstitutional way that wasn't really foreseeable, then we start to question, can this law actually exist? Can this law be abused in a way that we didn't see? So we will look into that. We'll keep going. I'm going to play the Rumble transition music. Right after we transition to Rumble, I will take a short break. Got to go to the bathroom, check on the house like I always do around this time, and then we'll be right back. And we'll get right back into it. So hard. So hard. See you guys over on YouTube. Or wait, Rumble. See you on Rumble. On your way out of YouTube, please click the like button. Please lick the like button on your monitor as well. And hey, on Rumble, you can click that little thumbs up, and that will keep you safe from STIs. This statement has been regulated by the FDA, and they approve. See you guys over on Rumble. If you don't go to Rumble, I bid you farewell and adieu. Peace. Peace.